Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
So my mom, my dad, my sister, and her newborn baby had just moved to this small town in the Midwest called Liberty, Missouri. Now this town is very old. It has a lot of history. The house that we bought and we moved into, I don't think was haunted, but I think it was more so the land itself that was haunted. To kind of give y'all an idea of just how old this town was and how much history it has, this building that's behind me is called the Oddfellows Home. This building was built, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think in 1893. So very, very old. It's been a hospital for the mentally ill, the physically ill. I think at one point it was an orphanage. So this town has been around for a while. For the entirety of my mom's life, she's always had a lot of supernatural experiences. She's been very intuitive. So right when we moved in, she kind of sensed that there was some sort of entity or spirit, and we always thought it was kind of a childlike spirit just because it was more so playful, and it just played a lot of pranks. It never really threatened us or our safety or anything. Now, as mentioned before, it was my dad, my mom, my sister, and her newborn baby living in this house, and the most activity happened in this room, which was the baby's nursery room. The doors in this room would always open and close by themselves. My niece would wake up in the middle of the night or really early in the morning around 3 or 4. She would stand up in her crib looking out over the room, yelling into space, yelling no, yelling stay back. I'll show those videos in a second. I would say the creepiest part about this room was that in this closet, which the door never stayed shut in this room, in this closet there's a little crawl space that was kind of locked. Here's a better picture of the door. You can actually see in this photo that this door is cracked open, and that's how it always stayed. No matter how many times you shut it, that door would always open back up. Now, this bedroom was actually a Jack and Jill bedroom, so there was a bathroom connecting these two bedrooms that were right next to each other, and this bathroom is probably where the most creepy thing ever happened. My sister got out of the shower and saw this on the mirror. Now, mind you, she was the only person in the house. My dad was visiting family in Iowa. My mom was on a work trip. I was down here in Texas with my husband. And at this point, she had been alone in the house, just her and her newborn, for a week. This was the last day of the week that she was alone. And she takes a shower, and she gets out of the shower, and she sees this on the mirror. Mind you, we have lived in the house for a year at this point. We've taken so many showers. That mirror has fogged up so many times. Never ever has a message been written on this mirror. Now, this is kind of where we were validated in the fact that we thought this was a childlike spirit. Not only did it play pranks and kind of mess with us like that, but we think that this spells out Anna Boanna, and then there's 3 little stars. You can't really see that one, but there's 3 little stars underneath it, and this just really confirms that we were right in assuming that this might be a kid. As mentioned previously, my niece would, in the middle of the night, stand up in her crib and look out over the room and yell things like no and stay back, and I will show you guys that right now. Another thing that would happen a lot in that nursery was we would see a lot of orbs, and I know orbs are controversial, okay? A lot of people are like, oh, they're bugs, or oh, it's dust, or oh, it's just light from the camera and reflections and refractions or whatever, but just the way that these were moving, they had to be orbs. They had to be orbs, and I'll show you that now. The last video that I'll show you is me walking in the bedroom. As I mentioned previously, Doors would open and shut by themselves all the time. Now, I understand when you walk through like a doorway, sometimes the door will close behind you because of the wind, but usually it needs momentum for the door to completely latch. The video I'm about to show you, I walked through the doorway at a normal speed, like I'm not running through the doorway, and you can see it slowly shut, and the door completely latches. Completely latches. No way that door completely latches with as slow as it was going. Watch. Completely latched. So to wrap up the video, I'll tell 2 more stories. I don't have any videos or pictures from these, but I'm pretty sure y'all can take my word for it. I'm obviously not lying here. My first ever encounter with this spirit entity, whatever it was when we had just moved in. It was late 2019. I was just diagnosed with ovarian cancer, so I actually just had a pretty big surgery, and I was on some pretty hefty pain pills. I was on hydrocodone, so initially I thought I was just seeing things, but I'm upstairs, I'm in the Jack and Jill bedrooms. The bedroom that I'm in, the light is off. The bathroom that is connected to the bedroom, that light is on. So I wake up and I look in the doorframe of the bathroom and I see a figure. And it's nobody in my family. It doesn't look like anybody in my family. I see the figure, I get up and leave the room. I don't stare at it, I don't interact with it, I just get up and I leave. I go downstairs. All my family is downstairs. Nobody was up there. And then lastly, probably the craziest thing. So it was just my mom, my sister, and the newborn. It was around the winter time and it was about to be a big snowstorm. So my mom and my sister left the house to go run a bunch of errands before all the roads closed. They get back home with all the groceries and they take out the groceries in the car and they take all the bags and place them on the counter. Now, mind you, no food is put away, no groceries are put away. They just simply put the bags full of food on the counters and they quickly realize that they forgot something. So they leave, they come back with the thing they forgot. When they walk in the front door, they see all of the food, all of the groceries that they brought in and kept in the bags are out of the bags, just haphazardly placed around the kitchen in the most random spots. And probably the weirdest, tiniest creepy detail of the whole story is the twist ties on loaves of bread that was taken off of the bread and it was placed on the edge of the counter, sitting up just like a little person with its little legs crossed. So those are probably the craziest stories that I have from that house. Like I said before, if you know me, if I know you, you've probably heard these stories because I literally tell them every chance I get.
I don't know how crazy or unbelievable my story is, but it really happened, so I'm just going to tell it. Back in 2004, I was stationed in Ramadi, Iraq with the 2nd Battalion, 11th Marine Regiment, which was an artillery unit based out of Camp Pendleton, California. During our time there, we served as convoy security from Ramadi all the way to Baghdad for various convoys. That was our mission while we were out there. The base we were sent to was called Junction City. This was an Army, Marine, Navy compound that was across the river from the city of Ramadi. And the base we're on was a prior Iraqi police compound that we had taken over. So it was a pretty big base, several miles around the outside, high razor wire fences, outpost, artillery to respond to incoming fire, things like that, but several thousand troops stationed there. And so this was, again, 2004. And if you remember 2004, the Iraq War was very hostile. It was a very big year for combat. April of that year, there was a big battle in the city of Ramadi. And then in December of that year, Operation Phantom Fury is when we took the city of Fallujah itself. And that was during the time period I was there in Iraq. So just to give some background of when I was there. So to get to my story, back then when you wanted to call home, and I don't know what the protocols are now or how things go now, But when you wanted to call home, you had to go to a phone center. These were typically rooms that had about 20 phones in them that people would sign their name, and wait in line. Typically, each phone call was allowed 15 minutes. So when someone came out, they'd call the next name on the list, and they'd say, hey, so-and-so, you're up. And you'd go in there and you punch in a calling card number that you had prepaid minutes, and then you'd call home. And you'd have 15 minutes to call as many people as you could, or just stay on the phone calling home, right? So I had made a routine that at 2 a.m. I would go and make my phone calls, because 2 a.m. Iraq time was like 5 p.m. back home, something like that, but nighttime there was daytime here, type of thing. So I wasn't waking anybody up. And also the base, everyone was sleeping at night. So those phone centers were much less busy, because nobody was trying to wake up at 2 a.m. to call home more often than not. So I had a 1-year-old son at the time, and I just wanted him to hear my voice. You just never knew when your last day could be out there. So I wanted to call as often as I could, just to give peace of mind to my family that everything was okay, even if it was for a 1-minute phone call. And so I'd have my alarm set for 2 a.m. every day. And at 2 a.m. I'd wake up, I'd grab my rifle, sling it over my shoulder, and begin my walk a couple hundred yards to this Army phone center to call home. And so to make this walk, you'd have to walk across this open field. There was some grass, but there was no obstructions in this field. It was an open field, desert type of environment. But other than that, there was nothing across these fields, just a worn out path from hundreds of Marines and soldiers, walking back and forth between the barracks and the phone centers. And obviously, you're in a time of war. You're not walking with flashlights or things like that. And the only light there was the moonlight, which in the desert was more than enough. It's plenty bright. It always seemed like it was a full moon, never a cloud in the sky. So I'm making my walk. Across this couple 100-yard journey from my barracks to the phone center. And I'm looking at the ground. Not paying attention, just kind of looking at my next step, looking at my feet, staring at the ground, just thinking about who I'm going to call, or, things like that. Well, about halfway there, I run into somebody, like physically shoulder to shoulder, and I get knocked back. I get hit shoulder to shoulder, and I say, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." And I'm immediately feeling like, oh my God, who did I just run into? I'm an idiot. I'm staring at the ground. And I reach for this person's uniform to grab something to keep them from falling. But there's nobody there. And I'm looking, and there's just no one there. And so I freeze with my arms up, grabbing, and I'm listening for somebody rolling in the grass or somebody stumbling, but there's nobody there. And I sit there for another 10, 15 seconds. I even say hello, and there's no one there. And so I don't spend a whole lot of time, because now I'm kind of embarrassed. I'm I wonder if somebody is watching me talk to myself in this open field. So I just continue walking. So I walk another 100 yards or so, and I get to the phone center. And when I get there, the door is padlocked, and there's a sign on the door that says, this phone center is out of service until further notice. So for those who were out there, who were deployed, or for those who don't know, when that happened, it was typically because there were casualties on the base that particular day, or the day prior, or recently. And they shut the phone centers down as a way to make sure the news of the fallen soldiers or the Marines doesn't get back to the next of kin before they could do it properly. And so it was a common thing in 2004. It seemed like every other week the phones were down 3, 4, 5 days at a time, which, isn't a big deal if you're considering the alternative to being one of those casualties. And you completely respected those families, and your phone call, minor inconvenience, but your heart would always be with those families who were getting that news about their loved ones. So the phone center was closed, which it often was. And so I'm walking back, mild inconvenience that I wasn't able to make my phone call, but I'm sitting there thinking to myself, what if the person I ran into, the spirit that I ran into, was a soldier, Marine, sailor who was going through their routine still of calling home, and they didn't realize that they had passed. And that's who I bumped into that day or that night on my way to make my phone call. And I've never forgotten that. And sometimes it gives me chills thinking about. I never pinpointed the day. I never pinpointed who the casualty might have been. But yeah, that's what happened to me, and it was very real, and it happened. So there's my story.
Okay, I got one for you, and this one sounds not even bizarre. It just sounds like I'm crazy. So if anybody has answers as to what the fuck I seen, let me know in the comments. So we would stay at my great grandmother's house. That was huge property, by the way, like huge. And it was a family reunion. We were the first ones to get there that night. And in the room that we stayed in was a huge, huge room. It was able to fit 3 beds, 3 queen beds, and a wardrobe in the corner, and like our suitcases. It was a really big room. In that big room is a door that has like, if you've been to Mexico, you know what I'm talking about. It's like the windows that are blurry that are usually found in like shower doors. So like you could see like figures on the other side. It's just that it's like not clear. So this door had that window, and that door lets you use like a smaller room. So I slept on a bed with my younger sister. Keep in mind, I'm 3. So my sister has to be like 1.5, maybe 2. Which is the furthest one away from the door. It's like the very corner. Next to us is another queen bed, and that's my parents. And then across from us is another bed on the corner by that door, and it's my older sister. She's sleeping by herself on that bed. Now, this is where it gets a little crazy. So I woke up in the middle of the night to tapping sounds. I remember sitting up in my bed and looking around the room like, what is that? And everybody was sleeping. My dad snoring. Like, everybody's knocked out. All the lights are off. The only light that is in the room is the moonlight. There is a window in that big room, and it's like, I remember being so high, and the moonlight is casting in. Now, on the other side of that little small room is also a window on the same side of the wall, and you can see the moonlight also casting in that other side of the room because it's bright in there. So I remember looking into that door, that at least a little small room, right? I saw this hairy dog-shaped man. Now, remember, it wasn't clear. I only saw like the outline of his face, and I remember his face looked like a Yorkie. Like, it was a big snout, and like I could see the hair. But one thing I will never forget is its long fingers and nails. I swear to God, it was like a horror movie. Like, he was making the tapping sounds, and I could see how long his fucking nails are. And I remember him pointing at me, so he'd do this, and then point at me, and then he would do this for me to come and open the door for him. Now, that sounds bizarre, but I remember him. I could see him visibly getting upset because I wasn't going to open the door. And I remember shaking my head and being like, no, I'm not going. I felt so scared, like something, I don't know what it was. It just, something was telling me, don't go open that. And I see him start getting frustrated and walking back and forth. So he would like walk that way, past the window, walk that way, past the, so start pacing around. And then he'd stop at the door again, at that little window, and start tapping again. And would just continue to point and have point down so for me to open the door. I remember that my parents said that I woke them up. I was screaming. That I kept saying that there was a dog man. There's a dog man outside the window. My dad thought it was a man, like trying to lure me outside. And so he hopped on the roof that is like right by that window where my sister's at. And no one seen anything. So my mom had to calm me down. She said that she went back to bed. She put me back to bed. But I remember like the lights going on and he wasn't there anymore. As soon as the lights go off, everybody falls back to sleep. He starts tapping again and he's there again. I remember I was so petrified that I slept with the covers over my head and I woke up the next morning. And apparently, I wasn't the only family member who has seen this dog man on the property. 2 other people that I know in my family, like distant relatives, have also seen what this creature was, and they actually seen it, like its face. To this day, I don't know what the fuck it was. I don't know if it's like, it just felt, whatever it was, it felt ancient. I don't know what it was, but if I close my eyes, I can put myself back there, and I remember vividly what he was doing, how he was pacing, how he looked, those nails, the fingers. It was something like fucking Pennywise would do. I have not stayed in that property in like 20 plus years, but yeah. If anybody knows what it was, what it possibly may be, let me know.